name's Greg. I'm a consultant. I'm a principal consultant here at Collectiv. We help organizations with all things within the Microsoft data stack, and we specialize within Power BI, Power Apps, and Power Automate, as well as the Azure services that surround it. We're going to go through Calculate, kind of get an understanding of what it is, how you can actually use it, and how it actually works in Power BI report building. That said, excited to talk to you guys today about understanding the Calculate function. So let's dive right in. So what is DAX? So for those of you that may just be beginners with Power BI, it's just the language behind the Power BI tool. It's a set of query functions that you can query against basically your data model or your different tables that are in your Power BI report. It's used to enhance your analysis with Power BI data model. So, you know, if you're wanting to calculate, we'll show you some examples of some different ways to use DAX with the Calculate function here soon. If you want to calculate, you know, maybe total sales for all red bikes, or if you want to calculate total sales for, you know, a specific time period. This is basically how you do that. This is how you actually use the Calculate function, and that is a DAX formula itself. So what we're all here to learn about today is the Calculate function. So it's a pretty straightforward function, but it is important to know how it actually is used. So when you're actually dealing with DAX, you have two different types of functions that you use. One is called row context, one is called filter context. Today we're going to be talking about Calculate, which is a filter context, which is essentially it applies a filter to an expression that is inside to an expression that you've already created. So that said, how does it actually work? So as you can see here, here's the syntax. So if you've actually started using Power BI, the Calculate function has a syntax to where you type in Calculate, and we'll go through an example here in a minute. But we type in that expression that can be, you know, a sum expression, that can be an average, it could be another calculate, you can nest another calculate function inside of here. But really, this is your expression. But the key piece is what comes after that expression, and that's the filter. So basically, you're applying a filter context to this expression. But the important thing to realize is that order of operations of the Calculate function itself. So what it's going to do first is it's actually going to apply the filter to your data set first before it actually runs that expression. So for example, if I'm wanting to calculate total sales for all red bikes, I might have a filter that says bike color equals red. So what that's going to do is that's actually going to filter my data set down first to only show to basically a table that only has red bikes associated with it. And then it's going to run that expression, and then my aggregation can occur as far as creating that total sum sales. So again, keep in mind whenever you're using the Calculate, the filter context here is important. So this is simply just an expression that we'd be creating, but it's these filters. So we're going to apply this filter, and the second filter, and then the third filter. So once those filters have been applied to your data set, then we'll go ahead and then that calculation will be actually put into play. I'd like to jump in and just show you all an example of how this actually works. So the first thing I'd like to show you here is just basically the progression of basically some different DAX functions inside of Power BI. So what you can see here on the top, first off, is just a simple horizontal bar chart. And this is showing the average price with no filter, okay? So basically, if we look at this, we're just gonna see that we just use a simple average function, an average DAX function that says, give me the average price of my stocks at close, okay? So what it's doing is if we still go find fact stocks close, we'll go to our data set, and we'll go to our close column, and it's basically giving me the average of this column. So on average, what is that price of all of my stocks, you know, at close? And it's going to give that average. And then if we go back to our report view, we can see that this is what it is for 2020 all the way to 2016. So pretty simple equation gives us that. This could also be a sum. It could total that, you know, what's the total for our close, but that really wouldn't make, you know, that really wouldn't be a logical measure. But at the same time, this could be sum or some other type of DAX function. End of the day, it gives us our average price. Now, what I'd like to show next is this visual is going to show us the average price with the Dow Jones filter applied to it. So you can see here on the right we have another measure that we've created, and this time we're using the calculate function. And the calculate function is what we're talking about today. So if you see here, we can see what we've done is we've said, give us the calculate of the average fact stocks close. So again, the same function that we used before, but instead it's telling us to apply a filter. Our filter is saying where fact stock equals Dow 30. So let's go back to our data set and look at that. We see the stock. Basically what the filter calculation is doing is this. It's saying, okay, I've created a filter to where I just want to look at Dow 30. And this is basically what it's done. It went ahead and it said, okay, filter my data set down to just Dow 30, which I'm doing here as an example, and then give me the average of my close price. So then if we go back here, that's exactly what this has done. To whereas before, with just this average, it was looking at the whole data set. Now we've applied that filter. So one other thing I want to mention in here, as far as best practice is concerned. So in this instance, this calculate function, it's still accurate. But as far as best practice of writing your DAX equations out, you should actually reference a measure rather than writing out this DAX equation of average fact stocks close. Because we've already written that measure here, what I should do as far as best practice is I should actually reference that. So I should start typing in average price with no filter. So I should do this. And there's a couple reasons you want to do that. One is efficiency. So you're not constantly recalculating your, retyping out your DAX equations. It also maintains consistency and making sure that you don't mess up your DAX equation. Because maybe, let's say it was a more complex DAX equation rather than rather than just an average. That's a real easy way. Maybe you forgot to multiply it by 1.2, or you forgot to add another filter context to this DAX equation. It leaves more room for error. Plus, this is much more efficient to just reference a measure than to type out that DAX equation. So if I go ahead and just click the check mark button, you're going to see that this still remains the same because it's still the same measure. We're just now referencing the measure that we've created beforehand instead of typing out the DAX equation. Find me on LinkedIn, always looking to connect with like-minded individuals out there, always sharing a ton of content, and always curious to see what others have out there to share as well.